A lot of people, they ask me after I've performed, they come up to me and they ask, hey, you didn't look nervous at all up there. Wow, how do you do it? Or do you still get nervous? Or do you still get stage fright when you're up on stage? And the answer is yes, I do.
Before the world ever heard Angelica Hale's soaring vocals, the young singer was locked in a life or death struggle few could imagine. At just 4 years old, she was rushed to the hospital with what seemed like a severe infection. But within hours, her condition spiraled into a full-blown medical emergency. Doctors diagnosed her with double pneumonia, and what followed was a devastating cascade of complications: septic shock, multiple organ failure, and complete kidney shutdown. Angelica was placed on ECMO, an extreme form of life support usually reserved for only the most critical cases, where machines take over heart and lung function entirely. For 12 harrowing days, that machine was the only thing keeping her alive. In total, she remained hospitalized for nearly 3 months, undergoing painful treatments and dialysis. Her survival was nothing short of miraculous. But even as the machines were unplugged and her vitals stabilized, her future remained uncertain. At an age when most children are learning the alphabet, Angelica was learning how to live again. The battle left permanent marks, not only on her body, but on her family and spirit. And yet, through the darkest chapters of her early life, something extraordinary was beginning to form. A voice, a spark, a strength the world had yet to witness. But what came next would surprise even the doctors who saved her. As Angelica Hale's fragile body fought to recover from the trauma of septic shock, one truth became increasingly clear: her kidneys would not heal on their own. For over a year, she remained dependent on regular dialysis, a grueling process that drained her energy and tested her already battered immune system. But then came an act of love that would alter the course of her life forever. At just 6 years old, Angelica underwent a life-saving kidney transplant. The donor? Her own mother, Eva Hale. In a moment that stunned even the medical team overseeing her care, Eva made the ultimate sacrifice, giving her daughter not just an organ, but a second chance at life. The surgery was risky. The recovery was painful, but it worked. And almost overnight, Angelica began to transform. Freed from the exhausting demands of dialysis, her energy returned. Her body grew stronger, and something else began to emerge: her voice. With every day of healing, she became more expressive, more joyful, and more in tune with the music that was now flowing through her. Doctors called it a remarkable recovery. Her family called it a miracle. But what no one knew then was that this was only the beginning of an even greater journey. One that would soon take her from hospital gowns to red carpets, and from whispered prayers to standing ovations. As the months passed and Angelica Hale's new kidney gave her body a second lease on life, something unexpected began to surface: a voice. It started quietly, in hospital rooms and living rooms, where she would hum along to songs or mimic melodies she heard on TV. But what began as innocent curiosity quickly evolved into a gift too powerful to ignore. Her parents noticed it first: a rich, soulful tone far beyond her years. It wasn't just singing, it was storytelling, emotion, and resilience in every note. Encouraged by her family and vocal coaches, Angelica began performing at local charity events and talent shows around Atlanta. Audiences were stunned. How could someone so young and so recently near death command a room with such confidence? But Angelica wasn't performing for fame. For her, singing was survival. It was a form of healing, a way to process what her body had endured and her heart had survived. And as word of her talent spread, it became clear that this little girl from Georgia wasn't just chasing a dream. She was being pulled toward something bigger. A national stage awaited, and with it, a life that would soon belong not just to recovery, but to the spotlight. But the next step in her journey would come with a gold-plated moment that changed everything. In 2017, the world met Angelica Hale, not as a survivor, but as a phenomenon. At just 9 years old, she stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage with a quiet confidence that belied her age. The judges expected another sweet-voiced child singer. What they got was a powerhouse. Her rendition of Andra Day's Rise Up didn't just move the audience, it silenced the room. The performance sent shockwaves through the judges' panel, with Howie Mandel famously calling her the next Whitney Houston. But it was guest judge Chris Hardwick who cemented her rise, slamming the golden buzzer and launching Angelica straight to the live shows. That moment, gold confetti raining down, her family crying off stage, became one of the most replayed in AGT history. But it wasn't a fluke. Week after week, Angelica returned with even bigger performances. Clarity by Zedd, Symphony by Clean Bandit. Each song a masterclass in vocal control, emotional delivery, and raw charisma. By the time the season wrapped, Angelica had done what no one her age ever had. She finished as the youngest runner-up in the show's history. But behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. Rehearsals, media, instant fame, it all came fast. Yet even then, her composure never cracked. Because for Angelica, AGT wasn't the finish line, it was only a platform. And what she did with it next would prove she was more than a child star. She was an artist in the making. While Angelica Hale's rise seemed picture perfect on the surface, the reality behind her smile tells a more complex story. One shaped by health, heritage, and high expectations. Though her kidney transplant was successful, the journey didn't end there. Transplant patients live under constant medical management. Daily medications, regular checkups, and strict routines that most fans never see. And for Angelica, growing up under the public eye added layers of emotional strain that no prescription could fix. As a young Filipino-American performer, she often found herself navigating an industry that doesn't always make space for diverse voices, especially not child stars with life-threatening medical histories. Behind the applause, there were whispers. Can she sustain this pace? Is her health still stable? Will the world move on when the novelty fades? Angelica addressed these pressures with grace, using her platform not just to entertain, but to advocate. She became an ambassador for the Sepsis Alliance and Children's Miracle Network hospitals, sharing her story with patients and survivors around the world. But even then, the weight of maintaining a perfect image persisted. Fans expected flawless vocals, endless positivity, and constant content. Few knew how carefully she balanced her life between hospital visits and rehearsals, or how deeply her early trauma shaped her drive to succeed. In a world that moves quickly and forgets easily, Angelica Hale remains a reminder that behind every young star is a battle most people never witness. And just when it seemed like her story had reached its final act, she pulled off a twist no one saw coming. Just when the world thought they'd seen all that Angelica Hale had to offer, she reappeared. Not on a TV stage, not in a viral clip, but on Broadway. In a move that surprised even her most loyal fans, Angelica joined the cast of Boop. The musical, a brand new production inspired by the iconic cartoon character Betty Boop. Taking on the role of Trisha, a starstruck teen navigating life and identity, Angelica didn't just sing. She acted, danced, and delivered live performances night after night. For many, this marked a stunning evolution. This wasn't a kid belting a cover song on a talent show. This was a young artist commanding a full theatrical stage 8 times a week, live vocals, tight choreography, high-pressure reviews, and grueling schedules. Broadway isn't a stepping stone. It's a test of endurance, maturity, and professionalism. And Angelica passed it with a kind of elegance that's rare for someone her age. Even critics were taken aback by her stage presence, noting her emotional depth and magnetic delivery. And yet, for Angelica, this was less about reinvention and more about expansion. She wasn't abandoning music. She was adding new dimensions to her identity as a performer. The child star had matured into a triple threat, all while staying grounded in her purpose. But even now, as her resume grows and the stages get bigger, Angelica Hale continues to carry the same quiet strength she once showed from a hospital bed. Only now, it's center stage. Angelica Hale's story isn't just about music or fame. It's about survival, resilience, and redefining what's possible after unthinkable odds. From a hospital bed where doctors doubted she would live, to the glittering confetti of a golden buzzer moment, to the demanding spotlight of Broadway, every chapter of her life has carried the same theme: persistence. She has transformed near-death tragedy into inspiration, using her voice not only to perform, but to advocate for children facing medical crises like she once did. And while the entertainment industry is littered with child stars who burned out too quickly, Angelica has built a foundation rooted in something stronger than fleeting fame. Today, she stands not just as the youngest runner-up in AGT history, but as a voice for survivors, a role model for aspiring artists, and a symbol of hope for families still in hospital waiting rooms. Yet even with so much behind her, the biggest question remains: what's next? More original music? Leading roles on stage and screen? Or perhaps a shift into advocacy on an even larger platform? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain: Angelica Hale is far from finished. Her journey is proof that sometimes the most extraordinary performers aren't shaped by the spotlight itself, but by the battles they fought long before